We know you're interested in getting a clearer picture of Fresco Y Mas down in Deltona, Florida. Specifically, how do their prices stack up against places like Walmart or Publix? What's the value like? What's the scoop on their hot food? And, just the general feeling from locals.
Right. And we've looked through a bunch of Yelp reviews and pulled some details from the Fresco Y Mas website itself to kind of piece this together.
Exactly. So, our mission really is just to give you a solid overview based purely on what these sources are telling us. Okay, so let's maybe start with the overall local sentiment. What are the Yelp reviews saying generally?
Well, okay, the average score sits at 3.1 stars, and that's based on 11 reviews.
3.1. So, right away, that tells you it's a mixed bag, isn't it?
It really does. You've definitely got some happy customers in there, but there are also some pretty significant complaints popping up. The opinions really seem to diverge quite a bit.
Yeah, that's what struck me too. Like, you've got some folks raving about incredible prices, especially, it seems, on tropical, Latin, or island type foods. Maybe specific produce, meats, bakery stuff.
Things may be harder to find elsewhere.
Right. And they really emphasized checking the weekly ad for the best deals. Oh, and one person mentioned their old Winn-Dixie phone number still worked for sale prices, which is kind of interesting.
Huh. Okay. Good tip, maybe.
But they did wisely say, always double check the receipt before paying. And the lunch counter also gave some positive mentions. Good selection of Latin-style meats, sides, reasonable prices apparently. Plus, the bakery had some hard-to-find pastries. So some definite plus points there for certain things.
It does sound like they might have a real strength in catering to that specific culinary niche, maybe with some attractive prices on those specialty items. But, of course, we have to balance that with the less positive feedback too.
Absolutely. Because here's the flip side. Another reviewer flat out said most things were way higher than Walmart, like 30 to 50% higher. That's significant.
Wow, yeah. That's a huge difference in perception.
And someone else mentioned prices being higher than when it was a Winn-Dixie, so that comparison keeps coming up.
That's a really crucial point, isn't it?
Yeah.
It highlights this tension. Are the deals really good on some things, like the ad items or specialty stuff, while maybe everyday staples cost more compared to, say, Walmart? It makes you wonder about their overall pricing strategy.
It does. And then there was this other issue, advertised prices not being honored at the checkout. One person had multiple items ring up wrong, even after talking to a manager. That kind of thing really damages trust,
Oh, absolutely. Price accuracy is just fundamental. And if you add that to other complaints, like not always having basic staples in stock and long checkout lines, which apparently was also a problem when it was Winn-Dixie.
Right. So that issue persists.
Yeah, it suggests maybe some ongoing operational hurdles that affect the whole shopping trip, not just the price tag.
And the hot food section also seems a bit hit or miss. We heard the positive about the lunch counter, but then one review was really, really negative about a hot plate. Pork chop, rice, beans, yuca. They said it was basically inedible. Dry, tasted reheated, bland. Ouch.
Oof, yeah. That's a stark contrast to the comments about the lunch counter having good, reasonably priced selections. It points towards potential inconsistency, doesn't it? Maybe quality varies a lot depending on the day or the specific dish.
Could be. We also saw a comment about possible service issues at the deli counter and maybe with the cashiers. And while that Winn-Dixie number thing is interesting, the strong advice to always check your bill really stands out.
It does. It just highlights you need to be, an alert shopper there, especially with these reports floating around.
Okay, let's focus a bit more directly on that price and value perception then. Because you have one person saying fantastic prices from the weekly ad and another saying, 30, 50% higher than Walmart. How do we square that? Well, I think it really comes down to what people are buying and how they're shopping.
Yeah.
If you're targeting those specific weekly ad deals, maybe you do find fantastic prices on those items.
Right.
But if you're doing your whole weekly shop, maybe the overall basket cost ends up higher. The example someone gave about Sunchi juice nectar. It was on sale at Fresco Y Mas, but the sale price was still higher than the regular price at Walmart.
Ah, okay. That explains a lot. So a sale isn't always the best deal overall.
Exactly. It shows how value perception can be really relative. And then you look at the Fresco Y Mas website, their slogan is More savings, more service, more for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of have to weigh that against these varied customer reports,
You
right?
do. The website does push their weekly circular and digital coupons, which lines up with the positive comments about ad deals. So they are highlighting ways to save. And they mention daily hot meal specials for $7 in the deli, plus breakfast stuff like croquetas and empanadas at awesome prices. So maybe there's good value in those specific prepared foods sometimes. Let's circle back to that hot food section again. We had the positive comment, the lunch counter is always fun, good Latin selections, reasonable prices. Sounds pretty appealing for a quick lunch or dinner.
It does. And that suggests, a potential core strength for them, offering authentic, culturally relevant hot food that some customers really appreciate.
But then, man, that one really bad review about the inedible plate, you can't just ignore that either.
No, you can't. It raises that flag about consistency again. Is the good experience the norm, or are there off days where the quality really tanks? It's hard to say from just this.
Yeah, definitely a question mark there. What about the sort of local feelings, the community connection aspect? That often plays a big role in where people choose to spend their money.
It really does. And we saw one review, someone who grew up nearby who was super happy that the old Winn-Dixie became a Fresco Y Mas. They specifically preferred its Latin grocery concept over what they saw as Publix becoming more like a Whole Foods or Fresh Market.
Interesting. So for that person, Fresco filled a specific niche or preference in the local market.
Exactly. And another reviewer mentioned needing a tropical Latin island food fix. That really points to Fresco Y Mas potentially serving a specific demand in Deltona, offering things you just can't easily get at the other big supermarkets.
So for some shoppers, the value isn't just price, it's also about access to those specific cultural products.
Precisely. That availability itself can be a huge draw, potentially outweighing slightly higher prices on some other items for those particular customers.
Gotcha. Okay, rounding things out with some practical details. The hours for the Deltona store are listed as 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. However, we did see that one review complaining the doors were locked an hour early at 9 p.m.
Yeah, that's definitely inconvenient if it happens. Might be worth calling ahead if you're planning on going really close to closing time, just in case.
Good point. On the plus side, Yelp mentions they offer delivery, which is always a nice option. And the Fresco Y Mas website, as we said, highlights the weekly ad and digital coupons, so clear ways to potentially save money there.
And they also promote online shopping with delivery in as little as an hour. That's a pretty big convenience factor that could definitely appeal to busy shoppers.
For sure. Okay, so let's try to bring it all together. If someone's thinking about checking out Fresco Y Mas in Deltona, what are the sort of key takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, it looks like Fresco Y Mas could be a really good spot if you're specifically looking for Latin or island food products. They seem to offer competitive prices on those items, and their weekly ad might have some genuine steals. The deli and bakery also seem to get some positive feedback.
Right. And there's definitely a segment of the local community that appreciates having that kind of focused store, maybe as an alternative to the other big chains.
Exactly. But on the other hand, potential shoppers should probably be aware that overall prices on everyday items might be higher compared to, say, Walmart. There are also those reports about advertised prices sometimes not ringing up correctly.
And don't forget the potential issues with having basic staples consistently in stock, the possibility of long checkout lines, and those kind of mixed signals on the hot food quality.
Yeah, it's definitely a nuanced picture. It seems like a store that could be great for certain needs, stocking up on specific cultural ingredients, grabbing a deal from the ad, maybe trying the lunch counter, but it might require being a bit more vigilant about prices on regular items and maybe managing expectations around the hot food bar.
So maybe a final thought for our listeners then. When you think about value at a supermarket like Fresco Y Mas, what does that really mean? Considering these different viewpoints, is it just about getting the rock bottom price on everything? Or do other factors like finding those specific cultural items you can't get elsewhere, or the appeal of their particular hot food offerings play just as big a role in how you calculate value? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.